What's up, you guys? I am here. I've got a very, very special video for you guys today. We're going to be debunking all the myths around the do's and don'ts with the do not call list. So many people in the real estate industry have so many questions. What can I do? What can't I do? What's allowed? What's not allowed? And what are the facts? And that's where I think a lot of the debate comes from. That's where a lot of the controversy comes from is, what you can and what you can't do. And so with me today to help me through debunking all these myths, I've got attorney Bill Colonis, who is also our chief operating officer at Brookstone Realtors. And he's going to be helping us understanding the law from an attorney's perspective. So Bill, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Awesome. So let's kind of let's just jump right into it. I think the first thing that people need to understand is, what does the law look like from a high level? Have the audience understand the law from a perspective so they understand it.
So the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, or TCPA, what a lot of people call it for short, is a federal statute enacted in 1991 to protect consumers. So if you Google it, you can read the actual statutory scheme, but it's basically there to set certain parameters for phone solicitations and other solicitations.
All right, so cool. That makes a ton of sense. Really, this law was designed to protect against people, their privacy, or not privacy.
No, it is a privacy law.
It's a privacy law.
100%.
Privacy laws, and it talks a lot about, people can just have peace of mind with their home, something like that.
Yeah, so the typical examples, like you're at home with your family eating dinner and the salesman's calling you at 6:30, interrupting your dinner. So, that's the typical example that they're trying to protect individuals against their privacy interests when they're in their own home.
All right, got it. So what we're going to do as we go through debunking all these myths, we're going to get advice from Bill, and we're going to give you tangible takeaways so that after you're watching this video, you know what you should and what you shouldn't be doing. Would you agree?
I do agree, but they should know this is my opinion. This is not official legal advice.
Of course, as an attorney, right? Makes sense.
This is just my opinion. It's general for informational purposes, so you should always look at your specific situation and get another opinion, of somebody, your specific attorney, your personal attorney.
Fair enough. All right. So first question. So now that we kind of have a high level understanding of the law, what are the penalties, right? If someone finds themselves in a situation where they call someone on the DNC and worst case scenario goes to court and they get fines, what are the penalties?
So the basic penalty is what's called liquidated damages, which means that no matter what your actual damages are, the statutory provides for a certain amount of damages. It's a $500 violation. That's if you unknowingly call somebody that's on the do not call list, you're subject to a $500 penalty per violation. Now, there could be multiple violations per call. So if you call someone past 9 o'clock in certain areas, that's a violation. And the fact that they're on the do not call list is a violation. So that could be a $1,000 violation.
Okay.
Now, they have what's called enhanced damages, meaning if you knowingly violate the statute, if it's an intentional thing, they're on the do not call list, you don't care, you just do it anyway. They can triple the damages, so it can go from $500 to $1,500 per occurrence.
Got it. So there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of people who believe that if you call one time, you call someone on the DNC one time, you make a mistake and you don't call them again, the understanding around where that comes from an attorney's perspective, is there protection for somebody who's like, man, I didn't know, I apologize, I never called them again, versus the kind of what you're talking about, versus the company who knows they're on the DNC list and doesn't care and keeps calling. Right. Can you explain the differences there?
So yeah, an individual agent who makes one mistake, it is extremely unlikely that they'll ever be penalized for that, because it's a $500 violation and there's no one out there that's going to try and enforce that against you for $500. The FBI is not going to knock on your door and say, hey, you violated the do not call list, here's a $500 ticket. It's just not going to happen. So you see that is class action lawsuits where they have a company, a big target, some $1 billion organization that's got,
which we're going to talk about that actually in a second.
Yeah, sure. And they commit thousands and thousands of violations, and they have a policy in place where they're encouraging their agents to do that, giving them the tools to do that, consciously disregard the do not call list, yeah, they're going to get sued. $1,500 per knowing violation, thousands of violations. Now you got $15 million lawsuit, or hundreds of millions of dollars really is the one you're going to talk about. But so yeah, of course that's going to happen because you have whole firms that'll dedicate themselves to enforcing that against the company.
So let's talk about
it's lucrative for the lawyers. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so for the solo agent, right? The person who's watching this video right now, who's calling for sale by owners, expired listings, absentee owners, or cold calling through neighborhoods looking for listings. And because there's a lot of fear out there, right? There's a lot of fear, and so people just they don't want to go to jail, right? And they're very, very scared. So I guess what I'm hearing you say, and tell me kind of if I'm hearing this correctly, is never would a broker or an attorney say, yep, you're good to call somebody on the DNC. Never would you give that recommendation. However, the reality, if as you as an attorney, you are brought a case where a consumer says, hey, this real estate agent called me one time, I would like to press charges or whatever they say. That's kind of what you're talking about as far as class action. That's huge case, big opportunities for realtors or for attorneys versus the one-offs here and there. Is that kind of what you're saying?
100%. Yeah. So if somebody knocked on my door saying, Brandon Mulrennan called me one time and said he was sorry, can we sue him? Do I have a cause of action against him? I would say, yeah, maybe he technically violated the statute. You're on the do not call list. He called. That's a technical violation. But if you apologize, you say, hey, I didn't mean to, and then you take proper precautions, you have steps to make sure you don't call them again, it's really hard to persuade an attorney to take the case, number one, but then you have to persuade a jury that, he's liable and he committed this offense. I mean, that's a technical violation. You call someone on the do not call list, it's a technical violation. Hey, I'm sorry, won't happen again, and you actually take steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. You have a policy, that type of thing. Or you can use RedX. They help filter the system using a SAN number and all that too. So.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about that. So thank you for that. So let's get into best practices, right? Because one of the things that I teach my students and our agents at our company to do is prospect for listings, right? And so this DNC thing comes up consistently, almost on a daily basis. So let's talk about best practices. What are some things that people can do that will help protect them and give them better peace of mind when prospecting for listings?
Well, number one, if they're on the do not call list, don't call.
Right.
Simple. There's a lot of business out there. You don't need to call that. Why give yourself the headache or cause yourself anxiety?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's the easiest thing, right? It's just to take a position to say there's a lot of business out there having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And companies like the RedX, and so I'll put a link in the description below this video. If you want to give RedX a try, you can start a free trial. They won't charge you anything to get signed up, but I'll put a description in the link below. And that company will do all that work for you. They'll take these lists for you. They'll scrub them against the DNC so that all an agent has to do, they make it really simple. You just hit the go button and it starts calling all the people that are not on the list, right? That's one thing. The other thing is this opportunity that prospectors have as far as creating what's called a SAN number, an SAN number with the do not call registry. So what does SAN stand for?
It's a subscription account number.
All right, so it's a subscription account number. Here's what that means. What that means is if you're watching this and you're prospecting, you can set one of these numbers up to be, federally registered as a user, as someone who has transparency into the do not call list.
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're taking your number, the number that you do business with, and you're registering it with them on the other side, so to speak. You're saying, hey, I'm a business that does telemarketing. Give me your list. Let me compare the numbers I have with you so I can make sure I'm in compliance. You have to sign something that says I agree to abide by the TCPA and all the federal standards and stuff like that too.
Awesome. So two key takeaways, right? Number one, there's tons of companies out there that will scrub against the do not call list for you. So you're not having to spend hours and hours doing that. That's the first takeaway. Second takeaway is anybody can set up a SAN number. Anybody that's prospecting in any industry, but especially in real estate, you can go and set up a SAN number. All you have to do is Google the instructions and you can be registered on this list to get transparency into the do not call list. All right, so now we talked about some best practices. Let's talk about one of the hottest topics, and that is real estate agents that call FSBOs and expireds, right? And so there's a lot of debate here. There's some lawsuits that we're going to talk about in just a second that some massive firms like Keller Williams are going through. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But my belief, I've built my career going after for sale by owners, right? It's what I teach my students to do. And, I guess my stance on this, my belief on this, and I kind of want to debate this out with an attorney, is the for sale by owner has their hand raised to the world with their phone number on their front lawn on a sign that says, call me, I'm selling my house, right? Yeah. So my perspective on that as it relates to the DNC is, is calling that number a violation? Let's start with that. Walk me through your belief on that, or what the law states.
If they're on the do not call list and you're calling them for a commercial purpose, technically it could be a violation, yes. I mean, it's debatable, it's subjective. So your argument would be that they're personally availing themselves to the solicitation, right? And there's different exceptions to the do not call list, to the TCPA, where, some people argue that if you have a buyer that you're bringing to the for sale by owner, that you're not violating the do not call registry.
So that's interesting. So really, what I hear you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but calling for sale by owner specifically creates some gray area in the law. Can we agree to that?
Yes, the law is filled with gray areas.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Okay.
It's all gray.
And so my whole point there, if you're watching this video, isn't that it's okay to call people on the do not call list, but in my experience dealing with for sale by owners specifically, I've never run into an issue with for sale by owners like I have with expired listings or cold calling just random people. It's never been an issue with me as it is with just cold calling random people. And that's why I teach people specifically to work with this segment of the population.
Right. Well, the practical consideration is that they're accepting calls. So it's unlikely to develop into a contentious conversation. They're expecting that. They should be expecting that. If they're not, and I guess where they would get frustrated is if, 10, 15, 20 agents call them in a couple of days, that would get frustrating to them if they're not welcoming that.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That's a good segment into what I want to talk about now. And, as you're watching this in the comments section below, let me know what your questions are about the do not call list, and Bill and I will hang out after we upload this video to YouTube for about an hour or two answering all of your questions live. So after you watch this, put a question in the comments section below, and we'll get back to you as it relates to the do not call list and the laws. So the biggest company on earth, real estate company, Keller Williams, it's public knowledge that they are going through a class action lawsuit as it relates to this very thing. Right. The violations of specifically expired listings is, I think, what the lawsuit's all about. Right. Help me understand class action versus one-off situations.
Well, what was the first thing that you said? The biggest real estate company on the planet.
Yes.
Yeah, they're a huge target. They have a lot of money, and people are going to go after them, right? Yeah. That's just the way it is. You can collect on that if you win the case. Okay. They're not going to go after me or you and sue us for $1 billion. Sure. We don't have $1 billion. But class action, not everybody, but a lot of people have been involved in class actions. They don't even realize it. So if you think back, you probably got like a postcard in the mail that said, oh, your bank, Chase Bank or something, if you banked between this date and that date, you were likely exposed to some sort of consumer protection violation, right? Yep. Fill out the back of this postcard and send it in. If you did that, then you were a member of that class action lawsuit. And then a couple years later, you forgot about it and you got a check in the mail for like $14. Right. And that was your cut of the class action violation, right? Yeah. That's it. And then you looked at it and said, I don't know what the hell this is, but I'll just deposit it, right? Sure. So you were a member of a class action lawsuit if you ever did that. So class actions, everybody knows the Aaron Brockovich example too. Yeah. So you got, what was that, GE? Yeah. So yeah, they poisoned a whole community and the community went after them and got, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's a reason that was a movie, is because it doesn't happen that often. Okay. Right? Excuse me. So they made a movie about it because it's kind of sexy, Oh, yeah. This person got 3 million, that person got 1 million. You, as an individual, if you get called on the do not call registry, you're never going to get $1 million. Aaron Brockovich is not taking your case. Okay. It's just, that's not going to happen, right? So, but a class action is a group of people similarly situated that have had their rights violated or something along those lines, right? And they get together, usually attorneys group them up, and they go after one specific defendant. It could be multiple defendants, but they go after one target for all the violations that happen to a large group of people. Could be 10 people, could be thousands of people.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, and so the whole thing with Keller Williams is that exact thing. Like all these people coming out of the woodwork saying that, yes, a Keller Williams agent called me around when my listing expired off the market. And that's what creates this opportunity, I guess you could call it.
They'll put commercials out and they'll say, have you been called by a real estate agent in the last 30 days or within time of the year things? Call us at this number and we'll get you, the money you deserve.
Yeah.
It's something like that. So that's how they gather up these groups of people. They'll put billboards on the side of the road, call us if this happened to you. And once they have enough people, it sort of, snowballs. They send out mailers. Then they get through the discovery phase where they're requesting information from Keller Williams. They'll get all their lists and they'll send them out, solicitations saying, hey, join our lawsuit. Remember Quicken?
Yeah.
Every employee from Quicken got a little note that said, hey, you want to join our lawsuit? They eventually lost. I think actually they didn't get any money.
Right.
So I don't know whether they won or lost.
Sure.
They didn't definitely get any money.
So that makes sense. So I guess we'll end with this, and that is, as agents are sitting there, again, going back to the solo practitioner, which is the vast majority of the real estate industry, should they be scared? Should they be concerned? Are they going to go to jail? Are they going to get millions of dollars taken away from them?
Well, jail, remember, these are civil penalties.
Yeah.
So,
but people are scared. I'm telling you, I get these questions all the time from real estate agents that are just so scared.
Some people are scared to leave the house.
That's exactly right.
Can't help that.
So should the solo agent be scared, or what last pieces of advice would you give people?
Well, the simple advice is if they're on the do not call list, don't call.
Absolutely.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Right? And if you mistakenly do, apologize. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Make sure you have a nice, clear procedure, your own internal procedure to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that protects you, right?
And if that happens, is it safe to believe that an individual would probably not, it would be more likely that they wouldn't run into issues if they did exactly what you just said?
Yeah. Is there a class? Can you name one real estate agent at Keller Williams that's being sued?
No.
On that class? No, because they're suing Keller Williams.
Got it.
That's the target, right?
Yeah.
So for an individual agent that's selling 25 homes a year, that's a nice, productive, successful agent that makes a mistake, it's like 99.99% that they're never going to get sued or be named in a lawsuit for one individual DNC violation. Did you violate it? Probably.
Sure.
If you call someone on the do not call list, you probably...
It's black and white.
It's a technical violation.
Yeah, that's right.
It's what they call statutory.
Yeah.
Right? So it is what it is.
The next thing is, should they be worried about that? That's kind of what we're talking about, right?
I wouldn't be.
Sure. Exactly right. And that's kind of, I get this question almost every day from either a current student or one of our agents at our firm. And that's essentially kind of how I respond. I'm like, as long as you're not being malicious and you make a mistake and you call somebody on the DNC and they say, don't call me again, and you say, I'm sorry, I will not call you again.
Correct.
I mean, at the end of the day, just like you said earlier in the interview, it's going to be hard for an attorney to take a case like that.
They're not going to take that.
They're not going to take that case, and the consumer probably doesn't even take it that far either. That just happens, and as long as you're professional about it, I don't think there's a whole lot to worry about.
Right. You're professional about it, you're courteous, and you make sure you have a procedure to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
That you put them on your individual do not call list.
Makes total sense. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of this interview. You got a lot of clear takeaways. Bill, thank you so much for doing this interview. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe on your way out, and then I'll put a link to a free training in the description below this video, show you exactly step-by-step how to get listings. I'll put a link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.